Bennett Kessler filed this story. More than 2 years ago, Mono County fired 15-year road department mechanic Dick Lumen for an on-the-job dispute. After a failed appeal, his attorney, Katie Belomo, took the case to Superior Court, where Judge Stan Eller ruled that Lumen should not have been fired, should be reinstated, and given a new penalty hearing. Mono County appealed. While the appeal is pending, Belomo asked the judge to reinstate her client, who has been unable to find a job due to the cloud of legal uncertainty. Judge Eller has ruled the county to reinstate Lumen on or before October 27th. Now, Judge Eller's decision describes Dick Lumen as a 62-year-old man, quote, who has labored in his profession as a diesel mechanic for approximately 40 years, end quote. The judge notes that he was terminated in December of 2011 and that for nearly 3 years, Lumen has been unable to obtain employment as a mechanic. The decision says that, quote, his terminated status is a stigma that has rendered him an outcast and a reject that has prevented him, especially at his age, from obtaining meaningful employment in his profession, end quote. Now, the decision goes on to say that, quote, this dilemma has caused not only severe economic hardship, it is clear it is also taking a personal toll on Mr. Lumen, rendering him unable to continue in a profession he has essentially spent his entire working life in, especially now at the twilight of his career, end quote. Now, Judge Eller concludes that Dick Lumen is entitled to relief sought, which he believes will not render the county's appeal meaningless. The decision says Mr. Lumen's reinstatement is temporary for the period only of Mono County's appeal. Well, 3 people were arrested, 2 from the Owens Valley, on drug charges earlier this week. According to a press release from the Inyo County Narcotics Enforcement Team, INET, on Monday, October 6th, at approximately noon, INET agents contacted Felice Luis Londa Jr., age 26, of Bishop, Kevin Douglas Elliott, age 24, of Big Pine, and Alberto Verdugo Flores, age 30, of San Diego, in the parking lot of the Bishop McDonald's, and the press release states it was due to possible criminal activity. Now, during the contact, Alberto Flores took off running and ignored the agent's commands to stop. Press release states that Flores ran through traffic across Main Street. INET agents and officers from the Bishop Police Department pursued on foot. As Flores was running, officers noticed he had a plastic bag or plastic bags in his hand. Flores was apprehended by Bishop police officers in front of a residence on Hammond Street. Agents and officers then searched the area where Flores was taken into custody and found 3 plastic bags containing methamphetamine are in a trash can. Agents estimated the total amount of methamphetamine to be about 2 ounces. Now, the press release states that Flores, Landa, and Elliott were arrested and charged with possession of a controlled substance, transportation of a controlled substance, possession of a controlled substance for sale, and conspiracy. Flores was additionally charged for resisting and delaying an officer. All 3 were transported to the Inyo County Jail in Independence. Bail has been set at $25,000 each. Well, Bennett Kessler filed this story. The October 6th trial date for Ken and Don D. Rossi was vacated as the court waits for Ms. Rossi to obtain new counsel. This Bishop couple faces charges of embezzlement of $1.5 million in Inyo County welfare funds. Now, according to public record, last month, Michael Berger, lawyer for Don D. Rossi, was granted a motion to be released as her attorney. Rossi has applied for a public defender. That move effectively vacated the October 6th trial date. Mr. Rossi continues to be represented by attorney Gerard Harvey. Now, Inyo County District Attorney Tom Hardy confirmed that the case is on the calendar for October 22nd. At that time, there may be appointment of a new counsel for Ms. Rossi and resetting of a new trial date. The Rossis were originally arrested in April of 2013. At that time, they faced charges of grand theft by embezzlement, embezzlement of public funds, grand theft of personal property, misappropriation of public funds by a public officer, welfare fraud, conspiracy to commit grand theft, 31 counts of identity theft and other charges. Dondi Rossi had been terminated from her job in the welfare office in February of 2013. The Rossis had entered pleas of not guilty and have denied all allegations filed against them. In November of last year, DA Hardy had said that the total charges against the couple numbered 213 felony counts. And Bennett Kessler filed this story. A contributing writer to NBC News, Linda Carroll, has examined the conflict between Mammoth Community Water District and Ormat Geothermal. Now, her story appears online. The Mammoth Community Water District shared the information in what they are calling the In Case You Missed It series. Now, while network news writers rarely pay attention to minor water wars in the Eastern Sierra, it is known that Mammoth Community Water District paid $125,000 for a public relations firm to create a higher profile of the fight with Ormat. Now, the NBC writer calls it a, quote, bitter battle, end quote, playing out. She describes Ormat's plan to increase pumping of hot water from a deep underground source and the fact that residents fear that this could threaten the cold water aquifer that supplies as much as 70% of the community's drinking water. The story says locals aren't against geothermal power, but do want the company to commit to drilling dedicated wells that would allow constant monitoring of changes and providing warning of threats. Now, Ms. Carroll also quotes Ormat Senior Vice President Bob Sullivan as agreeing that monitoring is important. She quotes him as saying he doesn't believe there's a need to drill expensive deep wells solely to keep track of water pressures and chemistry. Sullivan is quoted as saying that the hot zone can be monitored by taking working wells offline periodically to gather measurements. The story says hot water is removed at one location and returned at another. Bill Evans, a research chemist with the U.S. Geological Survey, is quoted as saying that it's possible removing the water could cause a pressure drop in the geothermal zone that might then draw down water from the upper cold water reservoir. NBC says the town wants 4 deep wells to be drilled, along with more shallow ones for monitoring. The USGS suggests 1 or 2. Ormat says no dedicated deep monitoring wells are needed. Mammoth Community Water District Manager Patrick Hayes says Ormat wants the risk to be borne by the community. He is quoted as saying that the deep monitoring wells are his community's insurance. Bill Evans of the USGS says, quote, somewhere a compromise has to be struck, end quote. So that's the latest talk over Mammoth's water supply and Ormat's need for hot water. We'll be back with more news.